the best vegan coffee cake. Hey guys, what's up? My name is Britt and I'm the vegan food blogger behind the Banana Diaries, and today we're making the most perfect vegan coffee cake. This coffee cake is so light and fluffy, it's tender, moist, full of cinnamon and super sweet, and it's even better than the Starbucks coffee cake. I said it and I mean it, it's true. This coffee cake is loved by all people, whether or not you're vegan. You're just gonna love how easy it is to make as well. It's perfect with a cup of coffee, obviously. We're just gonna be using a few simple ingredients, so let's get started. To start with our coffee cake, we're actually gonna make the cinnamon sugar filling first along with the crumble topping. This is because once we make the batter, we wanna assemble everything right away and get it into the oven. So I'm gonna start with the cinnamon sugar filling first. And that's just simply going to be granulated sugar or brown sugar. I have a mix of both. And then a little bit of flour. And then of course, some cinnamon. So I like mine to be very cinnamony, so I use about like 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. It's a lot of cinnamon going in here, but it's good stuff. And now we're just gonna give this a nice whisk and make sure that all the cinnamon is evenly distributed throughout. What I love about using brown sugar over granulated sugar for the coffee cake filling is because brown sugar has molasses in it, so it has a much richer taste, and I just think that it gives the coffee cake a really, really nice flavor that makes this coffee cake the best coffee cake, vegan or not, and definitely gives Starbucks a run for their money. I said it. So this is what your cinnamon sugar mixture should look like. It's all evenly mixed, and now we're just going to set that aside. And next up, we're gonna make our crumble topping. So I already have half a cup of vegan butter melted into the bowl. You can use any vegan butter. I'm using Earth Balance today, but I also love Miyoko's vegan butter with it too. Miyoko's does have cashews in it though, so if you're nut-free, stick with the Earth Balance. And then we're gonna add in granulated sugar, a lot more flour this time because we want the crumble to like keep its shape when it bakes. And then we also have more cinnamon. So just 4 simple ingredients for this. So that's all the cinnamon that we're gonna be using for the recipe. So no cinnamon goes into the actual coffee cake. It's just in the cinnamon filling and then the topping. And I'm also using a fork now. I find that it's just easier to mix it all together using a fork rather than a whisk, especially because we're gonna actually use our hands a little bit if we need to make sure everything is evenly distributed, and then the topping gets like super crumbly. So you can see it's like very thick. It's gonna feel almost like cookie dough. And also, if you wanted to keep this cake refined sugar free, you can also swap in coconut sugar. And also for gluten-free, because I know that there are gonna be some people that wanna make this gluten-free. I have tested this with both gluten-free 1-to-1 baking flour and oat flour. Both work amazing. And I'm gonna talk a little bit more about the gluten-free options as we're making the coffee cake layer, just to let you know you can make this gluten-free and it's absolutely fantastic. That is the consistency we're looking for, super thick. So now we have our filling and our topping, and it's time to make the actual cake. So set that aside and let's go make our cake. All right, let's make the cake batter part of our coffee cake. I have the oven preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and I've also lined an 8x8 pan with parchment paper. So to begin, we're gonna add our melted vegan butter to a bowl, along with our granulated sugar. And for vegan sugar, I'm using Florida Crystals. It's certified organic and vegan, and as long as you're using organic sugar, it will be vegan. Not all sugar in the US is vegan, so keep that in mind, the unfortunate truth of living in America. And then next up we have our applesauce. You can also use dairy-free yogurt as well. I use unsweetened plain. And then we're gonna add in, I'm using vanilla bean paste instead of extract, but you can also use vanilla bean extract. And this is just basically the seeds ground up. So I'm gonna just scoot that into there. You can see like there's tiny little seeds there. And we're just gonna give this a nice whisk. You can see too that the vanilla bean seeds, they have like the little specks, and that's gonna show up once we bake our coffee cake as well, which is gonna taste really amazing. All right, once this is all mixed, we're gonna add in our flour. So this is flour, baking powder, and baking soda. And now we're gonna add in our vegan buttermilk as well to help us mix. So for gluten-free, I recommend using King Arthur's gluten-free measure for measure flour, or you can use Bob Red Mill's gluten-free 1-to-1 baking flour. Now keep in mind with gluten-free, Gluten-free flour weighs differently than all-purpose flour, depending on the blend, and also if you're just using a straight-up flour like oat flour. So oat flour weighs a lot less per cup than regular all-purpose flour, and some gluten-free blends like Bob's Red Mill weighs more per cup than 1 cup of all-purpose flour. So for Bob's Red Mill and King Arthur, I recommend using the cup measurements and then converting to grams. And then for oat flour, I recommend using the gram measurements and then converting to cups if you're using cups, or just use the gram measurements, if that makes sense. But yeah, so we're just like folding this together and mixing. And then also a great tip for, I mean, you can also add this to your regular all-purpose flour vegan coffee cake, but I like to add in a tablespoon of cornstarch with the gluten-free flours, and I feel like it just helps give it a smoother taste and less gritty taste. And you can also swap in arrowroot starch too if you don't eat corn or if you have a corn allergy. Okay, so this looks great. We're almost all mixed in, and it's okay if the batter is still kind of chunky like this. This is actually perfect. We want it to be not super smooth because that actually helps our cakes to rise, especially vegan cakes. So you don't want a super smooth batter, or else you're not gonna have a cake that rises as much. And I know that I'm gonna get this in the comments because I've gotten it on the blog as well, but coffee cake does not actually have coffee in it. It is just supposed to be paired alongside of a cup of coffee. So that is why there's no coffee in this. I'm sorry to disappoint. If you want a coffee layer cake, I do have a vegan mocha cake. That's really, really good. So I'll link that in the description box. Oh yes, and we also have a vegan tiramisu that's amazing. So that's gonna be linked down below if you want that coffee flavor. And now let's assemble our vegan coffee cake. So we have our pan with parchment paper, 8 by 8. Just line it with parchment paper and you're good to go. We're gonna start by pouring half of our batter into the pan here. And it doesn't have to be exact, you can just eyeball it. And then we're just gonna spread the batter around the pan so that it touches all 4 corners. I just love seeing the vanilla bean specks in this. It's so pretty to me. It makes me so happy. Just love vanilla. I think it's such a lovely flavor. It's the base of all the other flavors, so it's pretty good and it's well worth it. All right, next up we have our cinnamon sugar filling. So I'm just gonna sprinkle this right on in here, and you just want it to have an even layer. I'm gonna twirl it around, make sure I'm getting all the corners. All right, awesome. Just gonna take the spoon and just make sure that it's even everywhere. And then when it bakes, don't worry, it's not gonna be dry in the middle. It's actually gonna be super gooey and delicious because we have the moisture from the cake layer on top coming through, and it's amazing. Okay, so now we have our cinnamon sugar layer. Now it's time to add our final cake layer on top, the other half of the batter. Just gonna spoon that on top. And I'm gonna try to get it in kind of dollops so that it's easier to spread around the pan. It'll be a little messy, that's okay. Okay, and then I'm actually gonna grab an offset spatula, and this is gonna help us spread the batter around on the top, because when you're spreading the batter around on the top, it's a little bit harder because it's, you know, you're fighting wet against dry, but it is possible. Okay, and you just want the batter to touch the 4 corners. And this is why it's so important to make the fillings in the topping before you make the batter, because if you rest the cake batter, it starts to thicken because our baking powder has activated and it's working for us to rise the cake, so it's a lot harder to spread the cake batter. So now once we have the batter spread on top, okay, and now we're gonna sprinkle our crumble on top. And you can just go in globs on top, it doesn't have to be pretty. Make sure you're using clean hands. And just sprinkle it evenly over the top. I use the entirety of this crumble mixture, so I want there to be a lot of crumble on top. It's the best part of the coffee cake. I'm starting to realize I think that coffee cake is actually a very New York thing. Like, I didn't realize that. So I guess coffee cake is very similar to crumb cake, which maybe is what this will remind you of, but we always called this coffee cake from where I'm from. I'm from the Northeast, and now I live in Florida. So it's super hot all the time here. Still not used to it, but okay, just want there to be even crumble everywhere. And then you can break up some of the larger pieces so that there's crumble covering every single part of this coffee cake. All right, and now it is time to get our coffee cake into the oven. So this will bake at 350 for about 45 to 55 minutes or until a toothpick comes out clean, and then we will serve it. So I'll see you in a sec. All right, and our coffee cake is all out of the oven. I cooled it, it's on a cooling rack now. It's time to slice into this. It smells so good. You guys wanna come take a closer look? It's just so soft to cut into.
Oh, I can smell it.
Wow, that is so perfect. Light, fluffy. See, you have that nice gooey center as well. Ah, this is so lovely. This truly does rival Starbucks coffee cake. It's so amazing. And it's all vegan, and you can make it gluten-free. That is just so beautiful. I love the ripple of the cinnamon in the middle. Super fluffy, it's full of vanilla. It's so beautiful. Goes great with a cup of coffee. And now for the taste test. Oh, the crumble is so perfect. Okay. That's so good. Wow, that was so good. I think I need a sip of coffee too to go with it. Just happen to have this cup of coffee here. Perfect. That is so good. Oh my gosh, it's so sweet. It's full of cinnamon. The center is gooey while the cake is light and fluffy, perfectly moist. I know there are people that don't like that word. I have no issue with that word. It's a really, really moist and fluffy cake. So tender. You would never know that this is a vegan coffee cake. Come on. I mean, Starbucks. Let's get with it here. All right, if you like this recipe, be sure to give it a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so that you can watch more recipe videos like this. And check out my breakfast playlist where there are a ton of vegan and gluten-free breakfast recipes that you're just going to absolutely love, including these amazing vegan cinnamon rolls. You'll find the full link to the recipe right in the description box. If you just tap the arrow, it's right there. And leave a comment down below to let me know how you like this recipe. And yeah, I will see you on the next one. Bye.